Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and welcome to Patriot Radio, broadcasting live from deep inside the heart of the future Liberty State. Sponsored once again by On Fire Ministries in the legacy of Dr. Stan Monteith, bringing you the story behind the story and the news behind the news, where it's not about right or left, it's about right and wrong. It's about our hope not being in man, but in Jesus Christ. About not ending in prayer, but moving to action. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Father, deliver us from the evil one.
Welcome to Patriot Radio.
Good afternoon, fellow patriots. This is Matt Shea, and today on Patriot Radio, more from the war in Iran and what's being done to stop the stranglehold over the Straits of Hormuz, not from the Iranians so much as insurance companies and also terror attacks in the United States over the last 72 hours. We're going to talk about the latest here, and it just came out. Who is behind it? And today we're going to talk about brain hacking. Yes, you heard that right. And we're going to go through the latest on what is happening with technology, some things you should not be using right now because they're actually scanning what you're thinking and using that as, again, part of this huge database being created of your digital self. And here at Patriot Radio, we want you to be informed before everyone else so you and your family can be prepared for the times that are ahead, the times that are already upon us. But no fear. We were made for this. We do, however, need to pray. So join us. Send in a prayer request, patriotradio.us/prayer. We'd love to pray with you in your walk with the Lord. Also, you have got to see our new website, patriotradio.us. You can follow us on Telegram, patriotradio.us/Telegram. But you also can go straight to the website. You'll see a globe there where you click on any part of the globe. You'll see the little red square. Click on that. You'll get a story, and you'll see a feed on the right-hand side of what's been happening in the last 72 hours. Now, this brings us to 1 Samuel chapter 21. For your wisdom from the word for today. Verse 4, the priest answered David and said, there is no ordinary bread on hand, but there is consecrated bread, if only the young men have kept themselves from women. David answered the priest and said to him, be assured women have been denied to us as previously when I left, and the bodies of the young men were consecrated, though it was an ordinary journey. How much more, then, will their bodies be consecrated today? So the priest gave him consecrated bread, for there was no bread there except the bread of the presence. God wants all of us to eat from the consecrated bread today, the bread of his presence. Many of us have been on a very long journey. The bread of his presence goes deeper than the word. It goes to something that's intimacy, and everything in the church should be driving us toward more intimacy with God. What is intimacy? It's abiding in his presence, not just coming into the presence of the Lord, inviting him in, allowing him to speak every once in a while. It is continually abiding in his presence every moment of every day, asking him the questions. Lord, okay, you brought me here. What do you want me to say? When do you want me to say it? When God is having you make decisions in your life, run them by him. Ask what his heart is on the matter. Intimacy is a continual walk, a continual conversation with the Lord because you are always in his presence. I think a lot of times in the church, we have said stuff that makes it seem like that God is somehow lost in the woods somewhere, when he is in fact right here. He's already knocked on the door of our heart. And if we've let him in, he will come in and he will dine with us. So today, eat the bread of his presence. And that brings us now to your daily intelligence briefing coming to us from the globalist front.
The future is built by us. We have the means to make progress on the global agenda.
Insurance companies spy on customers with drones and AI. Using drone satellites and AI-powered image analysis, insurers now catalog 99% of residential and commercial properties in America. The data is harvested by insurtech contractors and processed through algorithmic risk models used to cancel policies at will. Technology has outpaced every consumer protection. We need to get our handle on this as quickly as possible. There needs to be very clearly spelled out rights regarding our data. As we're going to find out later in the show, rights regarding our thoughts. And if we don't, what does it actually mean to be human anymore if this is all harvested to make someone billions of dollars? Also, on the globalist front, just a reminder that KGB defector Yuri Bezmenov, a.k.a. Thomas Schumann, when he came to Canada, he had a letter to the United States where he warned the United States about the 4 stages of subversion: demoralization, or taking the morals out of a society; destabilization, the undermining of key institutions; and then we would come into a crisis period, which many observers, including myself, believe is happening here in the very short term. In addition to that, there would be the normalization phase, or what many of you recall from the COVID time, the new normal. That is all Soviet active measure campaigns. He says that leftist ideological sympathizers in the West were exploited by Soviet subversion campaigns and were then discarded by the communists when the communists came to power. In fact, he was a little bit harsher than that. He said they would line up and be shot. But that's what the communists do. In fact, it was leftist sympathizers that allowed the mullahs in Iran to take over. Many people don't know that. They were in the colleges. Interestingly enough, comprised by a lot of middle-class white women. But they were all Marxists. What happened to them afterwards? Subjugated, beaten, made to wear hijabs, burqas. The fact of the matter is that what we're seeing today is a level of ignorance and a lack of historical knowledge as to how globalists and communists work, how they want to control everything, and how communism really is a system of tearing things down. So we're going to see over the next year and a half a massive increase of unrest in the United States and attempts by the Marxists to put the final nail in the coffin of the United States of America. And it's going to be up to all of us on this 250th anniversary of independence to say, no, thank you. We choose another 250 years of freedom and liberty under God. That brings us to the China front. So what is China doing? China is diversifying everything. They're opening their borders to immigration. No, they're not doing anything close to that. In fact, China just passed the Ethnic Unity and Progress Promotion Law yesterday. It requires schools, businesses, media, and families to promote unity through Mandarin education, inter-ethnic mixing under that, mixing communities and workplaces, and pushing Han-centric assimilation. In other words, they're actually becoming more ethnically centric, not less, but under Mandarin and under the Han Chinese. Fascinating. So why is communism opening our borders? Why is communism trying to make us so diverse with theopolitical constructs like Islam, atheism, Well, because they know what made America great. In fact, they did a study on this. Beijing Academy of Sciences published a study a long time ago. You read about this in the book Jesus in Beijing, pages 15 to 16, depending on what edition you have. And the study looked at economics, politics, looked at our military, but realized that the heart of the West, what made the West great, what made America great, was our religion, Christianity. And the atheist communist Chinese had, quote, no doubt about that, end quote. You see, Christianity's always been the target. So when the Socialist Rifle Association is supporting disarming conservative Americans, and yet at the same time they're arming up and they're at the range, you got to ask yourself a question. Are the communists meaning what they say, or is it really all about the revolution? Of course it is all about the revolution. The issue is never the issue. The issue is always the revolution. And Americans need to wise up. And there are a lot of people wising up. With this huge win in Texas, 95% of the vote, 2 million people voting to prohibit Sharia law. There is hope. I think people are remembering not just the Alamo, who we are as Americans. That brings us now to our break. And when we come back, we're going to hit it hard. The Middle East front, what is really happening? And is Trump trying to get us into a forever war?
Your financial advisor isn't going to tell you this. Your bank won't mention it. And your 401k custodian, they're hoping you never find out. You can convert your retirement account into physical gold and silver, real metal in your hands, or stored exactly where you decide. It's called a gold IRA rollover, and it's 100% legal, 100% IRS approved. And your financial, quote, experts, they don't get a commission when you take control like this. Wall Street wants your money in their system, in their accounts, where they control it. But physical gold, that's yours. Can't be hacked, can't be deleted, can't vanish when the market crashes. VERITY Metals, we're the experts they don't want you to call. Convert your IRA or 401k into gold and silver that you can actually hold. Visit veritymetals.com, because your retirement should be in your hands, not theirs.
And we're back with the Middle East front. Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi saying, fellow compatriots, critical and fateful days lie ahead as you prepare yourselves for the final stage of this struggle. I emphasize that for now, you must refrain from taking to the streets. Do not approach government offices, military sites, police stations, or the residences of organizations affiliated with the repressive apparatus. And then he said this, his special message to government employees: do not show up at your workplaces under any circumstances. Do not sacrifice your lives and safety for the survival of the Islamic Republic. Again, unification happening as some Arab tribes in Iran now unifying behind Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. It's going to be very interesting to see how this all shakes out. And clearly he is a unifying figure right now. And clearly the Trump administration and the Israelis see the Iranians doing regime change, not boots on the ground. And there have been some commentators out there who have said that special forces could go in and get the uranium out, etc. Look at, anytime we're doing any of these kind of things, we have special forces on the ground. We have CA on the ground. We always have. Any war zone where this stuff is happening, you have those people on the ground. So this idea that we don't have boots on the ground, yes, we don't have a formal military presence on the ground, but we always have assets on the ground. That's how this stuff happens. It's how confirmations of damage, it's how assessment of damage happens. So the fact of the matter is, though, that the Trump administration very surgically now is taking the Basij footprint out in Iran. It's taking out all of their aircraft. It's taking out their entire Navy, trying to reduce their ability to manufacture drones clandestinely, like the Shahed drones. And the above water, drones, but it takes time. And the question is it worth it? Well, again, moral clarity here. We've been at war with Iran. This is not a new war. It is not a preemptive war. We have been at war with Iran for almost 50 years. This is finishing a war. And I think what I really am upset about with a lot of the people out there right now is they refuse to acknowledge that Islam has declared war against the United States of America through the Muslim Brotherhood and through these terror proxies of Iran. It's naivete. It's not just dangerous. It is stupidity of the highest order. We cannot have a country if we're not going to acknowledge who our enemies actually are. We're not going to understand the threat. The threat is that China, through its proxies, and the jihadis, through their proxies, want to destroy the United States of America, along with the globalists. It is a red, green, blue axis. Let's call it what it is. We are already at war, whether we want to be or not, and there's no wishing the wolf away. There's just getting the wolf off of your doorstep, and if necessary, using violence to do it. That is what the United States military is about, preserving freedom. This idea of this namby-pamby, sissified, pusillanimous, and you can go look that word up, approach to foreign affairs has landed us exactly where we are today. With a country that has a massive insurgent movement in it toward a color revolution. Let's understand this. Christianity has always been the target. America's been the obstacle. And as well in the Middle East, so is Israel. Does Israel's interests align with the United States all the time? No, absolutely not. But they are taking out Hezbollah and they're taking out Hamas, which is something the United States should have done 20 or more years ago. So from that standpoint, the American people understand also that this is something that needs to happen, that we have a just cause here. And I have to ask the question, those that have come out with the doom and gloom and those who come out who really are repeating and reiterating anti-Semitic screeds, why is it they always seem to apologize for Islam? Why is it they ignore 1,400 years of primary source documents from both sides of the horrendous, violent, anti-Christ nature of Islam? Why? Why do they always try to diminish it? Why does it always go hand in hand with anti-Semitism? This is something that I think the American people are far ahead of the leaders of this country, the influencers of this country on. And I think we need to get our facts straight here. We need to get our history straight. Those who are pushing back the 1,400-year war of Islam and are doing it in alignment with the United States, we would call that an ally. Doesn't mean our interests are the same. But it does mean there is a righteous goal. And the American people, I think, have had enough. The first footage of the U.S.-made Lucas kamikaze drone in action over Iraq, reportedly striking an Iran-backed PMF target. So now this is the reverse-engineered Shahed drone that was also improved by American engineers, being used in battle all over the place, actually, for the first time. Now, what hasn't really been talked about is the surface drones for the ocean and the subsurface drones for the ocean. That's going to be a game changer, especially when it comes to Taiwan. It's also interesting that the Taiwanese came out the other day and said they had 1,500 anti-ship missiles on their coast. No mention of the drones. So between that amount of ship missiles and drones, Chinese would have a very hard time trying to invade Taiwan. U.S. and Israeli forces reportedly carried out multiple strikes on the Saker camp in Baghdad, Iraq. So the Iranian proxy group's now being targeted as well as part of the broader campaign. Also, Iran's Ahvaz armored core base being wiped out. That is taking out the ability for them to mobilize and move troops quickly around the country. I suspect there's also going to be shaping operations in the northeast of Iran. As you look at the map here, the northeast of Iran is where there is a Kurdish ground contingent that has been there already and has been for a long time. But the fact of the matter is you're going to start to see pockets being isolated and cleared in Iran, and you'll see some shaping operations. So we'll pay attention to which areas of Iran in the north, particularly the northeast and northwest, those happen. Now, it's interesting in the northeast right now, it looks like some of the regime forces have retreated there. This near the border with Turkmenistan. But what has not been really talked about is how Pakistanis going into Afghanistan has really frozen Al-Qaeda there and frozen some of these terrorist elements there while the United States does this. It probably was this operation, but probably this was part of the plan all along as Trump struck a deal with them. Now, on the Strait of Hormuz, it really has been about insurance, but at least 18 vessels have been targeted in retaliation for the strikes on Iran. These have been hit with either drones or it looks like maybe surface drones on the ocean as well. So, with that said, the Energy Secretary, Chris Wright, addressed this, saying the U.S. Navy could start escorting tankers to the Strait of Hormuz by the end of this month. And we'll see. We will see. But Trump completely going around Lloyd's of London has really upset some of the insurance industry and some of those in the maritime industry. What did you expect? Just to be at the whim of a bunch of British insurance agents? No, thank you. The other piece of this that President Trump is also addressing is that he is doing 30-day waivers, which would allow foreign flag vessels to transport petroleum products from the U.S. Gulf Coast to ports on the east and west coast. Usually those, actually by law, under the Jones Act, those have to be U.S. flagged, but now they're doing some flexibility to take pressure off the oil markets. So we're going to see it kind of roller coaster here over the next little while. Iranian state media has confirmed that Akbar Kafari, the country's deputy intelligence minister, has been eliminated. He was widely viewed as a central figure in the regime's internal security and intelligence apparatus. Also, Nagi Mohammadi Nejad, the IRGC's chief of clerical affairs in eastern Azerbaijan, was also eliminated. And then you have the new supreme leader, Mujtaba Khamenei, still not being seen anywhere. He gave a speech, but it wasn't really a speech. It was somebody that read a supposed speech from him. By some accounts, he has had his leg amputated and is still in the hospital in a coma. Nothing can be confirmed with that, but one thing we do know is that Mujtaba was and is obsessed with the end of days and believes he has a special part in hastening humanity down that path. This is the Twelver Jafari school that they believe they need to create enough chaos to allow the Mahdi to come back. Part of that chaos? Destroying Israel and the United States. So what did he supposedly say in this speech? The Strait of Hormuz should remain blockaded. Gulf countries must close U.S. bases in the region. Iran will open up new fronts in the war where the U.S. and Israel will be severely vulnerable. An allusion potentially to sleeper cells in the United States. Also, he vowed revenge regarding his family, and Iran will seek compensation from the United States and Israel in response, or will destroy their assets. So nothing really new, but just the continued rhetoric out of the regime as the Israelis and the U.S. slowly pick them apart. Hezbollah, meanwhile, claimed a record day. The group says it carried out 38 attacks in 24 hours, targeting Israeli bases, towns, and border positions. Hezbollah has also threatened U.S. assets in the region as well. Lebanese president denounces Hezbollah and demands it submit to the Lebanese state. So now there's a clear divide between the Lebanese government and Hezbollah. Meanwhile, the first steps toward Christian independence in Lebanon, Christian villages in southern Lebanon declare neutrality and block Hezbollah. So it looks like Lebanon might be getting back on the right course. 2 Iranian diplomats defected in Copenhagen and Canberra, seeking asylum, joining a rising wave of Iranian officials who are abandoning their posts, according to Iran International. As well, lower ranking, this is something I've been watching for, lower ranking IRGC officials are also beginning to defect. A letter from an IRGC ground forces captain who defected from the regime, quote, "I joined the IRGC 12 years ago because he loved his country." But then he said that he was actually supporting and protecting the survival of a few men and their assets, those who are in power at the top. So, quote, "I left everything behind because I could no longer be a jailer in my own home. Now my only hope is that the world hears the voice of the people inside Iran and that those who still hold weapons lower them from the chests of our youth and finally stand with the people." I expect this is going to speed up here the next couple of weeks. Hamas is using the war against the Islamic regime in Iran to recruit new fighters, and today showed them off. I suspect the Israelis are taking note of every single one of those vehicles and people in them. Now, getting to proxy terror attacks around the world. Could this be the awakening of the sleeper cells? We're going to talk about that briefly when we come back from the break.
In a world where uncertainty can change everything overnight, one thing shouldn't: your access to the essentials. We've built a secure, private supply chain designed to keep you prepared, no matter what happens next. Every item ships directly from trusted U.S. suppliers to you. No middlemen, no international dependency, and no guesswork. When shelves are empty, when systems fail, when the world gets out of hand, you won't have to worry. Because preparation isn't panic, it's peace of mind. Join the network that keeps you supplied. Secure your access today.
And we're back with the proxies being used around the world to foment terror attacks, and those terror attacks increasing, including here in the United States. We'll get to that here in a moment. A Shas MK was seriously wounded in a stabbing attack in Ramat Gan in Israel. And part of the issue with this is these attacks aren't lone wolf. That is such nonsense. These people are radicalized because Islam calls them to do this. So there's no radical Islam. It's just Islam. Jihad says there should be warfare against Christians and Jews. We're going to get to that here in just a bit, and I'll give you the quote. But this is starting to happen now in Europe and the United States. This is intentional. It's not a lone wolf campaign. It's operationalization. That brings us now to the Russia front. Ukraine and Romania will jointly produce drones. It's also reported that agreements have been signed on energy cooperation, defense production, and strategic partnerships. So that is an incredible step forward there in Eastern Europe that we need to pay attention to. Also, something is shifting in Europe. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz just called the EU a complete failure in front of global elites at the World Economic Forum, stating, "Germany and Europe have wasted incredible potential. We have become the world champion of over-regularization and zero growth." In addition to that, the EU Parliament Committee just passed an effort to surge deportations of third world migrants, thanks to a right-wing majority. The move includes a lifelong entry bans and ensuring states take back their migrants. Keep pushing Europe, I agree, Eric Doherty. The era of deportations has begun, says a Swedish MP. So this looks like it is sweeping now across Europe, even in countries that were not very favorable for this. Also, reports of an attack At a Jewish synagogue in Norway, police have arrived on the scene. It looked like there was at least 3 casualties from the last report that I got just before we came on today. But this is again an example of the terror proxies being activated around the world. That brings us now to the South America front. It looks like we are going to see in our lifetime a massive shift rightward toward the right things in South America. ABC International reports on Maduro, first of all, and his life behind bars at MDC in New York City. He has a small cell, 3 by 2 meters, which he can leave 3 times a week for 1 hour. And he often screams at night, quote, "I was kidnapped and I am the president of Venezuela," end quote. Now, this is the shift. Watch next for Brazil. We have seen a shift in Argentina, Paraguay, Honduras, Bolivia, Ecuador, El Salvador, and even a shift with the Marxist leadership in Mexico and in Colombia. But there was an epic meeting in Chile between Patriot Flavio Bolsonaro, that is the former president's son, and Brazilian presidential candidate, and Argentina's president, Javier Milei. So you are now seeing these South American countries unite, and they just met in the United States. Talk about how they can work together to root out the cartels and restore an American-centric Western Hemisphere. Not in the sense of just America, but all Americans in South America and North America. Also, the conservative Jose Antonio Cast, a staunch U.S. ally, was sworn in as president of Chile yesterday. He is a family man, pro-Catholic politician, father of 9, and he defeated a communist. Let's bring up that next picture real quick of his family. This is going to be happening more and more across South America as elections are secured and as truth begins to win out. Jose Antonio Cast wasted no time as president of Chile. 15 minutes after he'd been sworn in, they arrested one of the criminals tied to a murder of a policeman, Puerto Veras. So you see law and order in the first 15 minutes of his administration in Chile. Also in Uruguay, a very interesting thing happened. A based politician there put a burqa on and said, "This is what women in Iran wear every day. If they take it off, they get acid thrown in their faces or stoned to death. That's what those who support Iran defend." So Uruguay now stepping up, it looks like. Also, President Trump addressing Cuba, but he just got Ecuador to cut Cuba off big time. The FBI has now opened its first office in Ecuador after the country kicked Cuban officials out of the country. That went under the radar. And now Cuba is suffering horrendously because of the cutting off of oil from Venezuela as well. The next 60 days, it looks like there may be some sort of regime change in Cuba towards something more American-friendly. That brings us now to the national front. Not only is Polymarket saying this, but recent polls in the province of Alberta show that 70% want to cease to be part of Canada. This means Alberta could become part of the United States, and most of the oil in Canada is located in, you guessed it, Alberta. Incredible. The things that are happening. Almost like Trump knew it. Maybe part of a strategy. Also, there's no MAGA divide on Iran. Coming to us from Rod D. Martin. It was very clear that 98% of self-identified MAGA support the president on Iran, along with 86% of Trump 2024 voters. But then NBC came out with a poll saying 90% of MAGA Republicans support, 77% of all Republicans. Non-MAGA Republicans, 54%. And on CNN, 88%. So yeah, there is no divide. There's just a bunch of influencers out there who are trying to divide, and take note of who is doing it right now. I have to ask the question, who is paying them? Who is behind it? And why would somebody take 50 years of the same worldview and all of a sudden flip at the last minute? Could it be they are being used by foreign adversaries? I think it's something we can at least ask about and investigate. This interesting case, again, not really well reported on. A high-ranking retired U.S. Air Force Major General who once commanded Groom Lake, it looks like Area 51, has been missing for nearly 2 weeks. No one knows where he is. We're going to follow this. Could Iranian sleeper cells have kidnapped him, similar to the United States and Israel being part of operations to kidnap Iranian scientists or kill them? I don't know, but I find the timing very, very odd. The threat of Iranian attacks inside the United States continues to be raised. It does look like an encrypted message was sent. Could that have been used? Nobody knows. Total speculation, because guess what? It was encrypted. The fact of the matter is, we know there are actual Iranian sleeper cells inside the United States. How do we know that? Well, one of them was arrested. And here, after his arrest, and while he was being questioned by the FBI, here's what he said, quote, "I am a member of 910, also known as Islamic Jihad or the Black Ops of Hezbollah." This is the covert unit of the Iranians. The unit is Iranian controlled. He added that in the event the United States and Iran went to war, his cell would be called upon to act. Now, I want to talk about how this operates, how a sleeper cell works. A sleeper cell will blend in, usually mid-low level positions, just look like regular Americans. Some of these guys, like this guy, was so deeply burrowed into the United States of America that he had already become a naturalized citizen. So they just look like regular Americans. They go to work every day. But part of what they do is they have specific targets if they are ever operationalized, and they cannot attack unless they are given the command to do so. So they will go and they will do surveillance over years regarding their specific targets. Once they are operationalized, they will also do a final surveillance of that. It's called pre-attack surveillance of those targets, and then they will begin to attack. Now, if there has already been given the orders to attack, then we're now in the window of where pre-attack surveillance is either occurring or has been finalized, and they will begin to attack across the United States of America. And is that potentially what we're actually seeing? We'll get to that. But you also have to balance regarding fear-mongering. There was this big report that came out, there's going to be a drone attack on the west coast of the United States. The Trump administration began pushing back against that today. Carolyn Levitt fumed, demanding ABC News immediately retract its report, claiming Iran planning drone attack in California. Quote, "false information to intentionally alarm the American people," end quote. I would agree with that. But then today, some things happened. Let's go to the first article. An active shooter was reported at Temple, Israel, a synagogue and school in West Bloomfield, Michigan. That is right near Detroit. Now, just after we got that news, there was pictures of heavily armed FBI agents arriving at Temple, Israel in Michigan. They did not know the extent of this. CNN reported that someone had crashed a car into the synagogue and started shooting. A fire could be seen on the synagogue roof. It was almost as if some maybe Molotov cocktails were being thrown. I'm going to stop here. We'll give an update in just a second. But here is the bottom line. This is what normative mainstream Islam commands. Let's take a look at what John Guandolo put up today. Quote, "The hour will not be established," this is talking about the end of the world, "until you fight with the Jews, and the stone behind which a Jew will be hiding will say, 'O Muslim, there's a Jew hiding behind me, so kill him.'" That's what the Hadiths say, Sahih al-Bukhari. This is very clear stuff here. Normative Islam. Now, let's get to the update. First of all, CNN reported that explosives described as mortars were seen in the back of the now dead suspect's car that rammed this synagogue. The security guard was injured. It looks like he's going to make it. He was injured in the initial ramming attack and then was rushed to the hospital. The shooter is dead. It looks like everyone else is safe, thank God. But I'm going to do some analysis here. This does look like a complex, coordinated terror attack. And just before we came on the show today, it was revealed that the car was licensed to a Lebanese immigrant from Dearborn, Michigan. You heard that right, the hotbed of jihadi activity in the United States of America. Also, the Old Dominion shooter, which was also on the news here recently, his name was, you guessed it, Mohammed. Very interesting. Could these be sleeper cells being activated or just people following normative Islam? Does it really matter at this point? The United States is under attack right here in the homeland. Now, there's a picture from Fox News. Real quick, if we bring that up. You can see the law enforcement response there, but it was confirmed that the shooter is now dead. All right, let's go to some good news. First of all, the red state of Florida is about to pass its own Save America Act and send it to Governor Ron DeSantis for his signature. The bill fortifies citizenship verification for all voters and marks pen and paper as the default method of voting. Wow. Why can't we pass this at the national level? And President Trump is saying the very same thing. He's saying this is very simple. So is J.D. Vance. Only American citizens should be allowed to vote in American elections. Keep up the pressure. Looks like there may be an opportunity next week for a vote on the Save America Act, according to Mike Lee. So keep up the pressure. The red state of Florida is surging placement of Founding Fathers statues. Wow. They take statues down in other states. They get them for a discount, so they're putting them back up. I love this. Ron DeSantis doing a great job down there in Florida. Would that every conservative state start putting up Founding Father statues. Also, out of Texas, Attorney General Ken Paxton continuing to do a great job down there. I'm urging local officials to reject any further development of Epic City. From beginning to end, the East Plano Islamic Center development has been an illegal scheme designed to circumvent state law and destroy beautiful Texas land. Citizens pushing back have resulted in this. Well, let's see if there will be some prosecutions. And based on the declaration of CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood being terrorist organizations in Texas, will those properties be seized and shut down, starting with CARE's offices? That remains to be seen. Interesting as well, Paul Begala gets torched, by Scott Jennings after asserting Pete Hegseth spent millions on lobster and steak, all for himself. Then ex-users showed the receipts about where the money really went. And I just want to talk about this as a soldier. One of the interesting parts about being a soldier is that when you got a really good meal, you knew that a really dangerous mission was about to follow. And shouldn't soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardians get good meals every once in a while? I know what I ate for the rest of the time there. Some form of boiled chicken. In fact, I think we kept track of it. It was like 54 chickens each individual person ate. Couldn't eat chicken for 2 years afterwards. Seriously. I think we owe it to our soldiers to give them, we owe it to all of our military personnel to give them good meals, especially in a combat zone. Transgender 15-year-old Florida teen and friend plotted to murder a classmate as part of a, quote, blood ritual, end quote, to resurrect Sandy Hook shooter Adam Lanza. It's interesting how many more satanic crimes are happening today. You know, most people don't know we actually used to have a satanic crimes division in every state attorney's general office. Perhaps it's time to bring those satanic crimes divisions back. Also, the National Guard Bureau has announced the activation of the 260th Special Purpose Brigade within the Washington, D.C. Army National Guard in accordance with President Trump's Executive Order 14339 and subsequent directive from the Secretary of War. The National Guard elements of all states and territories to create a quick reaction force, be able to respond within 24 hours to civil disturbances. Now, I note the timing. It's about a month and a half before May 1st. That is not a coincidence. They are preparing for civil unrest in the United States as the Marxists here try to foment a color revolution. So when everything gets, just a second, don't put it up yet. When everything gets weird, sometimes you got to do something that is completely out of the box, totally unexpected, a total surprise. And I think this explains President Trump's strategy right now. He wants to be unpredictable, and he's succeeding at it in the strategy of taking down enemies, especially at the last moment when no one expects. We're going to start calling this the flying squirrel strategy, coming from a Russian wrestler who hit a flying squirrel with the last 3 seconds to win. If you don't know what a flying squirrel is, you got to watch this. Incredible. Here it is. Wabam. That takes some guts right there. Just like there's some guts with President Trump. Now, when we come back from the break, we're going to talk about brain hacking.
Your financial advisor isn't going to tell you this. Your bank won't mention it. And your 401k custodian, they're hoping you never find out. You can convert your retirement account into physical gold and silver, real metal in your hands, or stored exactly where you decide. It's called a gold IRA rollover, and it's 100% legal, 100% IRS approved. And your financial, quote, experts, they don't get a commission when you take control like this. Wall Street wants your money in their system, in their accounts, where they control it. But physical gold, that's yours. Can't be hacked, can't be deleted, can't vanish when the market crashes. VERITY Metals, we're the experts they don't want you to call. Convert your IRA or 401k into gold and silver that you can actually hold. Visit veritymetals.com because your retirement should be in your hands, not theirs.
And we're back with the weirdest subject ever, but it is true, and the technology is already here. In fact, it's already been rolled out. You just didn't know it. Brain hacking. Now, I've talked about how Wi-Fi signals can be used in your home to track your movements in your home for the purpose of marketing, that your energy usage can be used to track your habits. That's why there are smart devices, because they're transmitting things. I talked about activity-based intelligence. I talked about how they could use your ice cream against you in health visits. But brain hacking? Yes, let's go ahead and take a look at some of this video, and then as we go through the video, I'm going to comment.
This is why it becomes so important to understand the novelty and the viability of neuroscience is being leveraged as weapons. We then have the use of nanoparticulate agents, aerosolizable nanomaterials that can be breathed in and disrupt blood flow or neurological network activity, that can be used as an in-close weapon, or perhaps that can be used as a more broad weapon of disruption and or destruction.
What he's saying there is trying to disrupt entire societies using nanoparticulates.
Capability to utilize nanomaterials to get electrodes into a head and to create a vast array of viable sensors and transmitters. This is DARPA's N-cubed program, next generation non-invasive neuromodulation, utilizing these techniques and technologies to create vast arrays of implantable electrodes that need not be put into the brain surgically, that are then able to read from the brain and write into the brain remotely in real time.
Let's talk about what that means. Quite literally creating antennas and sensors inside your body without an injection, where these nano mechanisms come together to read your brainwaves and then transmit the data.
Advances in artificial intelligence are leading to medical breakthroughs once thought impossible, including devices that can actually read minds and alter our brains to help treat conditions like anxiety, Alzheimer's.
But that technology raises privacy concerns. That's why Colorado passed a first-of-its-kind law aimed at ensuring our private thoughts remain private.
Yeah, I want you, just the fact that law had to be passed on this, our private thoughts should remain private. now you're going to find out that earpods, yes, earpods, the technology with them that actually sends signals through your brain from earpod or AirPod to AirPod or earpod to earpod could be used to pick up brainwave activity and map it.
Pods that can pick up brainwave activity and tell whether or not a person is paying attention or their mind is wandering. Okay, well, you might think, fine, but even if we can tell whether a person is paying attention or their mind is wandering, you can't tell what they're paying attention to. You would be wrong.
Who has access to this technology?
That was before the World Economic Forum, number one. Number two, the implication is that employers will start using that now to monitor employee efficiency.
Karen, everyone, believe it or not, you can buy devices on the internet right now that can, to varying degrees, decode your brain waves. And the technology being developed by the likes of Elon Musk, Apple, Meta, and OpenAI can change, enhance, and control your thoughts, emotions, even your memories. It's the dawn of a new era filled with promise and peril.
You know, we used to think Big Brother was outside of us. This would be Big Brother inside you or on you.
If the at-home devices are impressive, those being used in the lab are even more so. Our brainwaves are like encrypted signals, and using artificial intelligence, researchers have cracked the code, identifying frequencies for specific words to turn thought to text.
That I just think it, and AI knows what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Because of the pattern of my brainwave.
Yes.
But with the benefits come risks.
It is some of the most sensitive data that you could possibly share with anyone.
Data insurance companies could use to discriminate, law enforcement to interrogate, and advertisers to manipulate.
Now, this is not speculation now. Insurance companies are using publicly available data regarding your habits in your home, as we actually reported on earlier in Patriot Radio, to change or even cancel insurance policies? Yes. That's why there's that little hockey puck they want you to plug into your car. They don't actually need to do that anymore because your car now transmits, especially after 2020, a whole host of data. And you can find out how much. You can go on the internet, and actually there are sites that provide you with what data is being leaked by your car now. And it tracks, your car tracks your speed habits and everything. This is setting up Big Brother. Literally, it is already rolled out. They just want to continue to hone it in.
Government, too, could get into our heads and potentially alter our thoughts, emotions, and memories as the technology advances.
Nobody wants to live in a world where some of these misuses or abuses exist.
While medical research facilities are subject to privacy laws, private companies that are amassing large caches of brain data are not. And based on a study
Hey,
by
Sawyer, I think some caches might be smaller than others, but we won't go there right now. Go ahead.
Neural Rights Foundation, 2/3 of them are already sharing or selling the data with third parties. The vast majority of them also don't disclose where the data is stored, how long they keep it, who has access to it, and what happens if there's a security breach.
Because they're selling it.
Medical director of the foundation, led the passage of a first-in-the-nation law in Colorado that includes biological or brain data in the State Privacy Act, similar to fingerprints, if the data is being used to identify people.
This is a first step.
Now, here's an issue with it. It is a first step because it's being used to identify people. But what if it's not being used to identify people? What if it's just being used for marketing data? I still don't want that out there, do you?
But we still have a long way to go.
And with companies and countries racing to access, analyze, and alter our brains, Pazowski says privacy protections should be a no-brainer.
It's everything that we are. You know, it's everything about our thoughts, our emotions, our memories, our intentions.
And Sean, we're also wondering, can any of these devices actually control a person's thoughts?
They have been used to control the thoughts of mice.
Yeah. Okay. So it just happened to mice. Okay. It didn't happen to. You see how this works, they try to minimize it. They always are trying to minimize the implications with this stuff. That's intentional. Don't pay attention to that. Use your critical thinking skills. Of course, they're trying to control the thoughts of humans. And of course, this can be weaponized. And of course, this can be used to develop assets or turn people into weapons.
All right, so much to take in. Yeah. Sean, thank you for that report.
Back to the World Economic Forum.
What do you think? Is it a future you're ready for?
No. Even the World Economic Forum audience said no.
But it's a future that has already arrived. Everything in that video that you just saw is based on technology that is already here today. Artificial intelligence has enabled advances in decoding brain activity in ways that we never before thought possible. Sensors that can pick up your brainwave activity, earbuds, headphones, tiny tattoos that you can wear behind your ear.
All right, stop right there. Did you hear that? Everybody hear that? A tiny tattoo on your forehead or your hand? That would be weird because that would sound like a mark of the beast. Go ahead.
Pick up emotional states like, are you happy or sad or angry? We can pick up and decode faces that you're seeing in your mind. Simple shapes, numbers, your PIN number to your bank account. It's not just your brain activity.
Notice how she just kind of went over that. They can get your passwords too. And so the point here as we end the show is that the solution is to get back to the simple. Go for a walk. Go for a hike. Maybe some of this technology, we really don't need it. Cut down on your screen time. In fact, an hour before you go to bed every night, put your cell phone away, put it in the next room, buy an old-fashioned alarm clock. We knew about the speakers being turned on so they could listen to what we were doing in our bedrooms at night. If that's not creepy enough, now they want to know your thoughts. How about no? How about we begin to push back? How about we change our habits? Get back to the old simple things that really made us human. I remember when I grew up, we would play all day long until my dad whistled for us to come home for dinner. I long for that America again, and it's within reach if we want it. This is Matt Shea. Thank you for joining me on Patriot Radio today. And God bless all of you. He is making this generation the greatest one. Keep up the fight.